If you are learning DevOps, cloud automation, or building AI workflows, you have probably done this exact thing before. A cron job that runs a Python script, then some error handling, then retries, and then a bunch of logging, just so you can figure out why the whole thing quietly died at 3 a.m. That's what workflow automation looks like for most of us. Fragile scripts, no real visibility, and a pile of glue code holding it together. It looks like a pipeline, but it's not CI/CD. So today I want to show you a cleaner way to do it using an open source workflow orchestration tool called Kestra. So the way it works is you describe your pipeline in simple YAML, connect an API, plug in an LLM, and run the whole thing from one place. And by the end of this video, you will build it by yourself for free. So quick heads up before we start, this video is sponsored by Kestra, but everything I show you runs on their free open source version, and what I think about it is my own take. So here's the actual problem. You want to automate something that sounds easy. When something happens, Webhook fires, or when you upload a file to S3 bucket, or as per the schedule. So you go grab some data and run it through a model and then send the result to Slack. Sounds simple, but it never is. You end up with a cron job on some server, a script that nobody wrote down, and no clue what actually ran when it breaks. No retries you trust and no logs you can actually read. When it fails, you are troubleshooting at midnight, scrolling through terminal output, trying guess what went wrong, and if you want to change one small piece, the whole thing falls over. So this is the gap that Kestra fills. It's an open source, event-driven orchestration platform. Think of it as the control room of all your automation. Instead of scripts scattered everywhere, you write your workflows as YAML, clean, readable, and easy to copy. You hit run and then you get a live execution graph, every task, every retry, and every log right in front of you. Something breaks, you see exactly where it broke and you replay it from that point. You don't need to start it from the beginning. And the best part, it runs on your own machine with a single Docker command, no cloud, no sign up, and no credit card required. So go ahead and open a second window because we are building this together right now. Alright, so this is what we are building. So basically this is an AI workflow that does something on a daily basis. So there is this site called Hacker News. I'm sure if you are into tech, you might have heard about it or you might be using it. So Hacker News is a site by Y Combinator, which is famous for its tech news, right? Anything that is happening around tech. So it's been published over here. Any new launches, any new advancement, it comes over here. Like in the first, when it's trending or whenever there is a new launch, you should be able to see it over here. So there are different type of threads over here. Now it will be almost impossible to go read this digest because it changes a lot. A lot happens over here, right? So that is why I built Hacker News Digest, which is an AI workflow that triggers the over here. As you can see, there is a schedule. Okay, so there is this trigger. So we have multiple options to trigger this workflow, either through a cron like a schedule. So like execute this 8 a.m. every day, or it could be a webhook trigger. So we're using an on-demand curl request or whatever you are posting the message to your webhook. So it triggers the Kestra platform. Okay, again, it's an open source orchestration and it goes to the scheduler or the executor. So what it does is over here, as you can see, there is Hacker News AI Digest flow, which is a part of Kestra platform. Consider this as a step of your CI/CD pipeline. Okay, what it does is it's fetch all the top stories from Hacker News API, and then it reads the story one by one because it's an HTTP request. You get a response in a JSON body, and then it calls the summarize function. Okay, so summarize chat completion. What it does, it actually makes an LLM call to the AI provider that you are using. I'll be using Anthropic Claude Haiku because it is one of their cheapest model, but you can swap it with Ollama, which is free open source model. You can run locally on your machine as well, or if you have any credits, you can use that. You can use Gemini API key, whatever you are comfortable with, right? So you can spend some money on it or you can use it free of cost. But which model you are using, the output depends upon that. Quick recap, it fetches the top story from Hacker News, okay, and then it reads the story one by one. It summarizes the chat using the LLM call, and then it also output the message to Slack because you probably won't want to listen to all the stories, so it summarizes top stories, it gets what is suitable for you, and then it posts the message to the Slack, because in Slack we have configured an incoming webhook, right? So it will use that webhook to post the message to Slack, and then you can see the message, you can read on a daily basis, and you can like use any other platform that supports webhook. You can use Telegram, you can use Discord, whichever platform you have access to, right? I'll be using Slack for this. And over here, I have also created a secret in which I'll be storing the API key for Claude as well as the webhook URL for our Slack. So it's simple project. It looks simple because we are using this workflow orchestrator, which is Kestra. Otherwise, it will be a huge pain. Even if you use any other tool such as N10 or any other tool, it is really complicated to set up, and it is really complicated to troubleshoot if anything breaks in between, right? And this is mostly for DevOps engineers, for developers who want to automate their AI workflow. So now let me just close this and let's start the demo. To start the demo, we need to do some initial setup. So over here, there'll be a .md.example file. Copy this and make this a .env file where you will be adding your keys. Okay, so the first key is your Anthropic API key. Provide your API key over here. If not Anthropic, you will be use Ollama key or any other LLM key. But yeah, provide your key over here, and then your Slack webhook URL over here. Okay, so I've already copied both the things over here .env in the .env file. So let's see how we can create a Slack webhook URL. Go over this site, which is api.slack.com/apps, and hit on create a new app and select from scratch. Let's give it a name. Let's call it Kestra demo, and select a workspace where you want your webhook to be triggered. I'll just select this one and hit create. Once you do that, you will be presented with some basic app credentials, basic details. What you need is the webhook URL from here. Okay, so click over here, incoming webhook, and activate incoming webhook. Okay, and add a new webhook over here. Again, the workspace, select the channel. Let me select the channel, and yeah, I'll just use the general channel. Hit allow. Now there'll be a webhook URL over here. Copy this, convert this into base64. Okay, so base64 encoding, you can do that, and then you can paste that in .env. So let me do that. Okay, so I have copied the URL. Now let's convert that into base64. Go over here, type echo and your webhook URL, which will look similar to this. Okay, and then add pipe and base64. Okay, so here's your base64 encoded URL for your Slack webhook. Now copy this and paste that in the .env file. Alright, so now let's go and check this file. So there'll be a shell script over here, and this is like a massive cron script that you would run if you were not using Kestra. So it has a separate logic for logging, for retries over here, and to fetch the story, to summarize it, and everything was done over here manually with just running this script, and a lot of things you would have handled manually, right? But now with Kestra, you can automate everything. So first, this is a Docker Compose file, because we'll have multiple containers, one for PostgreSQL. Okay, it's using PostgreSQL 18 image, and then here are the credentials for it, and then we'll be also using a container for Kestra. Yeah, so you can either run Docker run commands, or you can just run Docker Compose to bring up all the containers all at once. So let me just start my Docker, and I can just run Docker container. By the way, all the commands and every steps that I'm showing you, this GitHub repo will be there in the link below in the description section, so don't worry about it. Okay, so my container is up. Now I can just go inside this folder, Kestra demo, and I have my Docker Compose over here. So I can just do Docker Compose up -t. All right, it took a few minutes, and now it says both the containers are up from here. So let's quickly check. You can just do Docker container ps, and I see up. So there is a Valky container as it might be from some previous thing. So these two containers are up, which is Kestra and Postgres. So let's go to the next step, which is our container will be listening on localhost 8080. So let's go over here. All right, our Kestra UI has been loaded. So let's use the default credentials. Again, these default credentials I will also share in the GitHub repository, so don't worry about it. Let me just log in. Okay, so now you will see a default dashboard already created for you, which is similar to this. Go over here, click on namespaces. You will see a default namespace, which is Kestra. And this default namespace, it got it from the GitHub repository because it's in the same folder. And that's how I built the image. Now click on Kestra and you will see everything over here. All the flows will be here. So we have 3 flows. We have AI Digest scheduled, and then AI Hacker News fetch. So we have 3 different flows for it. And this is what we already discussed in the diagram as well. If you want to create a new flow, what you can do is click on create flow and copy the YAML from here. Let me show you the flows. So there are these 3 flows. Okay. The first flow is this. It has this format. It has an ID, which is what you see over there. The namespace that it belongs to. Then it has different tasks. Okay. Task is fetch top stories. Okay. And set the HTTP request type. Set the URI from where it will fetch the top stories, then fetch first top story, and then summarize it with the provider, and API key is Anthropic API key, model name is this, and message is like this is the prompt that we are giving to the AI model, that summarize this Hacker News story into 2 sentences for a Slack channel, plain text only, no markdown, no line breaks, and output will be stored in this variable. And next step, which is post to Slack, and then trigger is every morning at 8 a.m. and on-demand webhook is like you can just paste the key over here. Now there is this flow which is stage 2. What it will do is fetch top stories, fetch first stories, and then summarize. Okay, and this is basically I have given the AI Digest schedule as in this is when you are using the webhook. The first one was scheduled. This is when you are using the webhook, and the step has a webhook URL as well for the Slack. Okay, then we have the second one is basically the same thing that we were doing earlier in the first flow. You can just swap this, or you can just uncomment this part, and what it does is it replaces your Anthropic model with Claude, with Ollama. If you want to see and compare the result between those, that you can do, you can just comment this part over here, the provider, and change the provider from Anthropic to Ollama over here. Okay, and then there is this flow, and what it does it basically, this is the step 1. It fetches the top story and log the story IDs, top story IDs over here. The way it works, first fetch everything, log the ID, and then these steps in the same sequence. Fetch first story, then summarize it using the LLM, and then post the summary, the 2-liner summary to Slack. And then we have triggers over here. Okay, so this is the stage 1. Click over here. Okay, and then we click on execute. Okay, click over here. Now it says execution has started, and this is what it is doing. And you can just click over here and see this is success, and these are all the story IDs. Okay, that is storing somewhere. Okay, and over here you can go to topology, and this is the pipeline view. Okay, so this is when we triggered the execution, first task and second task. Okay, and here'll be the output, like the JSON output, but it is presented to you in a well formatted, readable format. But here's the JSON output, the debug expression that we were checking. And this is the response code, which is 200. Here are all the header items. So our first execution is done. Now let's do the AI summary plus Slack. So let's go back to flows, and we click over Hacker News AI Digest, click execute. Now execute. That's it. It's pretty simple. And if we were using a schedule, we just don't need to trigger it as well. We can just schedule it and it will auto run on at that particular time. Okay. Now it says it's failed because invalid header value. So let's go back over here to the flow, and in the flow AI Digest. Okay. And edit flow. So here is the YAML that was auto-loaded, but you can enter the YAML over here. Okay, so it's giving me the error for header. If you can see in the logs, it says invalid header value, right? And that might be coming from either of the secrets that I have. So I quickly check and find out that I actually did the base 64 encoding for Anthropic API key as well. So the base64 conversion was only needed to be done for the webhook URL and not for the API key. So now what I need to do, I need to go back to my repo. I need to make the change again in the repo, in the env file, and I need to rebuild the project. So let me pause the recording and let me do the rebuild, and then we'll trigger the flow again. Okay, I made the change to my .env file and I did the container docker compose restart. Now let's check if the containers are up 6 seconds. Yeah, both the containers are up. Let me go and check the UI again, which is over here. Okay, still coming up. Okay, and let's actually go to the home page. Yep, it's up now. Yeah, it already logged me in and my data is persistent because I was using the local volume mount. Okay, now let's go back to execution, and this was the execution, and you can check the topology. So in this step it was failed, right? Earlier two steps were successful. This step failed, so I don't want to restart it from the beginning. I just want to restart from this step. So for that, what we can do is we can go to overview. Okay, this is the step that was failed. Now you have two options. One is restart, one is replay. Replay will create a new execution from the beginning, and restart will restart from the failed task. So let's just click on restart, hit restart. Okay, now it says cannot find secret for the key. Okay, start one more time. Okay, so this invalid header value, it was coming because the base64 encoding, when I did, it has some trailing spaces, right? So make sure when you run echo command, echo -n, do that so that the trailing spaces at the end of the line will be removed. I'm sure that was the issue, but let me just do a restart and we'll see if it works. So there are two options over here. One is restart, one is replay. Restart is the execution of the failed task. It will resume from there, and replay is it will create a new execution from the beginning, right? So what we want is the restart, which is basically the resume of existing execution. Let's see, and now it failed with authentication error. Authentication error, invalid XAPI key. Why it is showing that? So there is a new error now. Okay, so the next time I was getting this error, which is authentication, because I incorrectly added the wrong environment variable in the env file, right? So when you see these type of messages, errors like authentication or malform request, invalid header, it has to do something with the env file. So make sure you double check that and don't make the same mistake that I did. And that is the reason why I add all the mistakes, all the errors that I face during the demo in the recording. I don't trim out that part, because with that you will know what issues you could face and how do we solve that. Let's start with the restart and let's hope it succeed this time. Okay, it's running for longer than, oh yes, it succeeded. So let's go back to logs. This is succeeded and the Slack is also succeeded. So let me open my Slack and see if it posted the message on the webhook. Okay, let's go to my workspace, open Slack. So here is general general message, and currently the time is 4:16 p.m. as you can see, and just now we got this message: organic maps in an open source map application that provide offline navigation without. So there is this Hacker News Digest that we just got using the AI workflow that we have created, which is awesome, which is what we wanted to see. There is another thing that you can do is you can schedule it so that you get similar digest every single day, and you can do other thing as well. You can just go to flows and you can call a webhook. So what we can do is you can post curl request to the webhook and see if it triggers it. Currently we did the manual trigger, but you can basically run a curl request. I will share the command in the GitHub repository and you can execute this using the curl request as well. Alright, before we go, because we have completed the demo, here's a quick look at the enterprise version of Kestra. So what we have gone through is the open source version. So you can do basically everything with the open source version. But if you want to make it a production ready application, something that you can use with actual production workload, then I would suggest looking into Enterprise Edition. It has various offering on top of the open source version, because now you don't have to self-host it. So every part of infra, audit, scalability, governance. It is managed by them as part of the enterprise offering. You will get single sign-on, auto audit, audit logging, secret manager integration, service account API tokens, role-based access control, and everything that you see over here. Plus, you can enroll yourself into customer success program and enterprise support with SLA so that you can get the real-time support whenever you face the issue in your production. Okay, and you can choose from available enterprise-ready deployments either on cloud like AWS, GCP, Azure, or on premises, or even on the air-gapped environments. So go check it out and let me know in the comments if you face any issues and if you'd like to know more about it. But yeah, that's it from the video. If you are done with the demo, make sure you do the Docker Compose down. It will not cost you anything. It just puts some loads on your local infra if you are not running it on a cloud virtual machine. Yeah, so do the cleanup and all the steps are there in the GitHub repository. Go and check it out and let me know what is the next use case you would want to implement with Kestra. Again, it's an open source, so you can use it. You can use your daily workloads on it. If you have some cloud credits, you can use that LLM, or you can use Ollama if you want to run the local LLM or Gemma 3 or whatever model you are using. I hope you like it. I hope you found it helpful and valuable. Let me know in the comments. That's it from this video. Thank you so much. Happy learning.